Ich nach nicht YouTube. Sorry. Welcome to another episode of The Curtain Call. And in today's episode, I want to share my thoughts on the new Kiwi comedy Nude Tuesday. This is a Stan Original movie. For those not in Australia, Stan is essentially the streaming network for Australia and New Zealand productions. So the film is directed by Armand Ballantyne and is written by New Zealand comedian Jackie Van Beek, who has previously worked with Taika Waititi on both the movie and television series of What We Do in the Shadows, as well as the spin-off series Wellington Paranormal. She also wrote, co-directed and starred in the 2018 New Zealand film The Breaker-Uppers. So this is a romantic comedy with a very unique selling point, one that has certainly a lot of potential for comedy. And it's that the entire film's dialogue is wholly made up of gibberish. It's a curious premise, right? Well, before I mess up your head with more gibberish, remember to leave a like and subscribe to The Curtain Call. Fair warning though, nudity will be discussed, but none shall be shown. And please don't send me nudes. I love you all, but I want to keep my comment section community friendly.
I'll see your penis then.
Please, no gratuitous nudity. I got HBO for that. Okay, on to the review. So the story revolves around the failing marriage of Laura and Bruno. Laura, played by writer Jackie, is a hard-working woman who has lost her way, being highly reserved, depressed, and exhausted from her office job. Bruno, played by Damon Herriman, is a pathetic excuse for a man who relies on Laura, has a deadbeat job, and gives the bare minimum of support in the relationship. They equally love their children, but it's quite clear the sexual tension between these two has walked out the door ages ago, and they're on thin ice when it comes to sticking together. On their anniversary, they are gifted with tickets to a secret island retreat that promises to bring back the spark to their marriage. A retreat with a lot of very sexually explicit group activities, all run by a cult-like guru, Bork, played brilliantly by Flight of the Conchords member Jermaine Clement. Laura and Bruno will be challenged in multiple ways as past demons are laid out for all to see, and Bork and the other couples threaten to bring the relationship apart. So the language used for this film is influenced heavily from the Nordic language. So yeah, it's essentially a New Zealand Northman. While certainly an appealing concept, going into this film, I didn't realise there was a further odd creative choice made for the film. And that's the choice to have different subtitle tracks attached to the film. So upon its release on Stan, Nude Tuesday came with 3 subtitle tracks to choose from, all of which differ greatly to the original screenplay that Jackie Van Beek wrote for the film. Essentially, that original screenplay worked as the framework for the actors to play around with when shooting, but it's not present in the final film. So we'll never really know what that original dialogue would have been like. Yeah, screw those 2 weeks of working on a script, that's nothing. I don't need to take those hours back. So the first subtitle track, which is the way I watched the film in full, was written by British comedian Julia Davis. The other was a combined effort from Malaysian comedian Ronnie Cheng and Aussie comedian Cecilia Paquao. And the last came with no subtitle track at all, essentially leaving it to the viewer to use their imaginations to interpret the story. So this review will be mainly dealing with the Davis version, which is the version I watched from beginning to end. I can confirm, however, that I did check out the other tracks briefly, and that there is a massive difference between Davis's and Cheng and Paquao's version. For example, the endings have completely different interpretations to the visuals of the film, and picking out certain moments in the film, they all had very different tones to the comedy. In my personal opinion, I can say that Davis's take on the material is the stronger interpretation. I don't want to hate too much on the other version, as I probably only watched about 10 minutes worth. But from the sequences I checked out, this version seemed much more predictable and certainly less playful with the oddball concept. One big advantage of Davis's version is how she plays around with the concept of using subtitles. She includes these really awkward mistranslations that don't quite fit the scenario happening on screen and kind of make you think, wait, hold on a sec, can I just rewind that? What did they say? An encounter between Laura and her boss starts off with a hilarious off-kilter greeting that sets out an awkward dynamic between the two characters, which is not found within the other version. Same with another moment in a supermarket, which I swear Davis just wanted to go as absurd and off the script as possible in this moment. So when I'm giving my rating on this film, I will not take into account the Cheng and Pakwao version, as I feel it is unfair to affect the rating when I didn't really see a lot of it. But I will admit the Davis version seemed like the superior choice to go for, and was the one that premiered at the Sydney Film Festival about a month ago. I did try my eyes with the no subtitles version, but didn't go through much of it. An amusing time, and I can see it developing a following with drinking crowds. As a whole, I'm very much a fan of this choose your own adventure method in watching Nude Tuesday. It's a fun little experiment that also supports the overall theme of miscommunication within partnerships and relationships. I feel it also plays into the idea of love, not having one sole translation, and being perceived in an endless cycle of ways by different people and cultures. Feeding into this, Van Beek has actually confirmed that they are discussing other subtitle tracks being released for the film over time. A tantalizing idea for expansion of the film, sure, but I'm not too sure Nude Tuesday will be a huge hit for audiences to make it worth the effort. It is a quintessential wacky New Zealand type comedy, and while Taika has obviously proved the selling point of Kiwi comedy to an international audience, I don't think this film particularly does anything groundbreaking or new for it to grow a massive following. As a whole, I did enjoy Nude Tuesday, but it should have been on a Wednesday instead. In all seriousness though, I do think it loses a lot of steam around the hour mark. The first 20 minutes is by far the strongest, as Jackie and Damon deliver really good performances, showing the tragic breakdown of their relationship. I'd go so far as to say this film at the beginning is more a tragic comedy of sorts. I really did feel sympathy for both characters and wanted them to sort out their differences. Upon arrival to the retreat, the film turns to the more absurd side of comedy with the colourful cast of characters, the spirit animals that every couple is presented with on their journey, which has a hilariously dark side to it, and the odd trials and tribulations that the couples must face. Jermaine Clement is clearly having a bunch of fun as the head guru, is the only character that Jackie actually allowed to speak a bastardized English. Everyone else, however, has to improvise the language, working off a basic rulebook of set in stone vocabulary, such as hellos and goodbyes and thank yous. And everyone does a really good job committing to the absurdity. But yeah, I won't lie, the film started to lose me as the film was approaching its third act. And this is where it becomes difficult to review. Because I mean, with multiple interpretations of the story presented to us through the subtitle tracks, can I really consider it a flaw in the film? Is it just a problem with Davis's interpretation of the script? Well, I think the problem can be also attributed to what we clearly see on screen. Sure, you can interpret this film all you like. I mean, you could interpret Laura and Bruno as just boyfriend and girlfriend, just bickering, and no one can really argue that they're not. My story synopsis at the beginning of the review was essentially what came out of the Davis version. You could interpret it in whatever way you want, but we're given a visual representation of the journey of two people sorting out their differences. And yeah, I feel like from what we visually see, it's definitely less creative and loses some of its steam by the end. I mean, one can't really argue Bruno makes a certain choice in the forest. That's undeniable. What he might be saying and what led him to making this decision in the first place is certainly up for interpretation. But we know he's doing that thing for sure. And yeah, it becomes rather by the numbers of the genre of cinema, and the attraction of the gibberish kind of loses its power by the end. So I kind of left thinking it's a bold experiment in humour, but doesn't really leave a big impact after the credits roll. It very much passes the time, and I was certainly entertained, but I don't think this is a future cult film in the making, which is a damn shame considering its playful concept. From a technical standpoint, the film looks fine. The most visually impressive moments are in the great outdoor moments, but this is more to do with the visual splendour that is New Zealand, more than what the actual cinematography looks like. It's nothing amazing, but I feel like they could have been more creative with the look of the film. The soundtrack fares a little better though. I do respect the decision to use recognisable songs and tunes, and to still apply the gibberish rules to these covers. But again, I feel like they could have been a little bit more playful with their choice in songs. As a whole, Nude Tuesday is a fun experiment in comedy. It definitely drags by the end, but it has enough to keep it at least entertaining and worth a watch. Probably won't revisit it, and I don't really have an interest in checking out future subtitle tracks, if they are indeed released. Unless maybe Taika comes on board, or Jackie's original screenplay finally gets its release. Or I don't know, someone out of the blue like Richard Curtis writes a version. Curious to see whether this choose your own adventure concept gets picked up for future projects. For now, I'm giving Nude Tuesday a solid 6 out of 10. It's definitely above average for its general concept and a really great opening 20 minutes. But yeah, I feel like the rest of it is a bit of a letdown. And so yeah, that's generally it. Before we go, I just want to quickly recommend 2 movies to people who enjoy cinema that likes to challenge narrative norms of language. The first, a truly bizarre satire in the film Sorry to Bother You. A truly crazy film that you would never predict where the film takes you. All I can really say is it starts off with a telemarketer of black colour learning to put on his white voice to excel in his job. The really biting satire of racial tensions in America and the power of corporations. It's a real blast of a film. And the second is a dramatic turn in using interpretive language in the 2014 film The Tribe, with CODA blowing up last year with its embrace of sign language in cinema. This film goes the full extent, with the entire film being presented in sign language and choosing to have no subtitle track attached to it, essentially relying on the visuals of the performance to tell its story. The film mostly has a cast of teenage unknowns, but the film is a really powerful statement on peer pressure, love, and survival in a society filled with violence and hatred. It's a great film to see and a perfect example on how to approach communicating narrative through unconventional means. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Nude Tuesday. Did anyone check out the Cheng and Pakwa version? Did anyone give a shot at the unsubtitled version in full? Did you prefer it? Let me know. Thanks everyone again, and I hope to see you on the next episode, which may be a very controversial one, and it's not because I will be in my birthday suit. Alright, see you guys later.